Hello, and welcome back to my podcast that was formerly known as The Diary of an Ex-Teacher, Navigating the World of Wellbeing. It's now called the Green Heart Wellbeing Podcast, Life After Teaching, and I'm Ashley Green. So welcome back if you used to listen to the podcast before, and welcome if you're new here. And basically this rebrand of the podcast is just going to be based all around my wellbeing business, wellbeing in education, the kind of things that I'm doing now, with also obviously lots of takeaways for yourself around wellbeing, especially for those that work within the education industry. So yeah, having a bit of a rebrand, and it's exciting. I think the old format, I used to kind of read a little bit of my diary and what was going on at that time, and then linking it with a positive psychology concept. But now I think what we're going to do is just focus more on the life after teaching and all the things that are happening in my life as a new business owner, but also continue to talk about well-being for you, whether you're in education or not. Really, it can apply everywhere, but also I do focus a lot on teacher well-being just through habit, and also I'll be sharing the things that I'm doing with children. So if you're interested in your own well-being, if you're interested in well-being in education, hopefully this podcast will be useful to you, and I'll get to meet some more of you along the way. So I just want to kind of start this podcast with a little reminder about why I left teaching. Now, all the previous episodes are still there, so if you want to find out a bit more about me and how I kind of made part of that journey and things, feel free to go back and listen to some of those episodes. I don't want to repeat it all here, but basically I was definitely at a point of complete burnout. Like, I just hit a point. It was I left teaching almost exactly 3 years ago now, so it was coming out the end of COVID times. I was in Dubai where I live, and if anyone lives in the UAE, you'll remember that schools went online overnight. And then eventually we ended up back in the classrooms with so many restrictions, and it's just a really, really hard time. And I think a lot of people can obviously identify with that and remember the hard time you might have had during COVID time. But then towards the end of my teaching career, I was definitely in a place of huge burnout, just running on fumes. And you'll also hear in some other episodes that I've experienced depression and anxiety and things like that. And there was a big amalgamation of different things, but I just wasn't managing within education anymore. And it's interesting because when I look back, the reason was I was still pouring every single thing I had into the children and doing what was best for them, and really still trying to function at optimal level at my job. But actually what was happening was my health, or my mental health, was getting worse. So I was really in a lucky position where I'd been in the same school for a really long time, and they were great, and it was a great school to work for. But again, like most teachers, you just give so much of yourself and put yourself last. So I had been working within the wellbeing space for 7 or 8 years at that point, as well as being a class teacher. And I just thought, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So I took the leap and I worked in a wellbeing centre for a couple of years. I'm still kind of connected with them, which is lovely. But I decided to start my own business. I've always known that I wanted to do something on my own in wellbeing. I was just a bit too scared before. And if you hear one of the episodes, I think it's about fear, feel the fear and do it anyway, the book that changed my life. So through the master's I did in positive psychology and coaching psychology, it's an applied master's degree, which means that you could apply it to the industries that you were working on. So it was great because during the course there was people working in healthcare, people working in corporate, people working in education, and applying positive psychology and doing wellbeing science and preventative measures. It was just a light bulb moment for me. So fast forward to all this time, launched Green Heart Wellbeing last November, so we're almost a year old. And when I say we, I mean me, the company. And predominantly the 3 things that we focus on is education, nature, is going to be a big part of it. And again, spirituality in the terms of connecting to something higher than yourself, whether it be nature, whether it be a religion, or whether it be, the universe, whatever it is. So it's helping anyone that comes to be part of the Green Heart Wellbeing family to nurture your own well-being and like prevent burnout, I guess. So even if some of the children that I work with now, I do nursery wellbeing clubs, which I absolutely love. It's just so fun. Like they're 3 and 4 and we just have the best time, and they start to learn things about their inner voice and looking after themselves and looking after others. So yeah, I do coaching now as well. The 3 kind of main areas that we work with in education is ECA clubs, so after school clubs in schools, like I said, and also some of those are nursery clubs, starting to work in homeschooling groups. So that's education that works during the day rather than after school. And I do coaching, one-to-one coaching for children within schools, outside schools. Also do coaching for adults, predominantly teachers who are also looking to maybe leave the field or change something within their teaching career. They want to stay in school but want to adapt and change and do something a bit different. And also my wellbeing curriculum, which was in a school previously, but that's kind of went on the back burner a little bit while I try and grow the ECA clubs. So it's been busy, but I'm going to talk a bit more in other episodes about building the business, how it started, how I find it, the things that have went wrong, the things that have went right, and keeping busy. But one of the real core elements of Green Heart is always making sure that me, myself, the people that join Green Heart, whether to work with us or experience in one of the clubs or coaching or whatever it is, that feeling well is at the core of everything. So there are, lots of things that we see online and Instagram and different stuff. It's like hustle, get up at 5 a.m. and da-da-da-da. Whereas I've really struggled with that side of it. Having got up at 5:30 a.m. for so many years as a teacher, because if you're not in the UAE, schools, the doors open at like 7:30 or 7:40 here. Most schools, so I'd be up at 5:30 and early and stuff like that. So I actually almost went like the total opposite way and just had like no structure to my days whatsoever. I'm only just starting to now find balance. So, I feel like my nervous system took a long time to kind of recover, and then I went to the opposite extreme where I was just being really like laid back about things. And obviously I still have to earn, have a mortgage to pay, a dog and a cat to feed. So it was finding a way to make sure that I'm earning enough, but not resting too much. So yeah, there was a lot that I can share about that. So I guess today's episode, I just want to do a little refresher about some of the seeds that I planted at the the seeds that I planted actually helped me grow this business. So if you're thinking about leaving teaching, and I've had some friends and some clients that are like, but I don't know what I would do. Like, I just don't know. You do know, you just haven't came across it yet, and it's in there somewhere, and it's connected to so many of your like passions or thoughts or things you enjoy, or, so we can talk about that in other episodes, and also if you want to do coaching and whatever. But I think what I wanted to just share was some of the seeds that I maybe planted along the way. So the first one was my own learning. So yoga teacher course in 2017. I don't teach yoga now, but I enjoy classes when I go. I haven't been in ages, full disclosure. But for me, it was more a mental like a mental well-being month when I learned how to do it. It was just lovely. Obviously the masters that I mentioned about, and when I was learning about positive psychology and well-being science, that really like sparked the creativity and other things in my life. So I self-published the Emotions and the Feelings book, made a character strength pack of cards before that. Then I think the next thing was creative wellbeing cards, and then I did another book, the Emotions and the Character Strengths. Now I made all those things while I was teaching because I just needed these resources to help teach kids within the school, like the things that I was learning, but in a way that they could access it and families could access it. So those were some of the little seeds that I planted along the way. And I used to always never really, in all honesty, like think so much about the coaching psychology element of my master's. It was always the positive psychology part. But then as time went on, I was like, my gosh, like being a teacher, you're already coaching in so many ways. But then this actually gave me the experience, the understanding, the theory, the practical knowledge, like, and being able to coach adults as well. So yeah, that was another seed that I'd planted inadvertently but didn't realise, and now that's part of the business that I'll offer as well. Some of the other seeds that I guess I would have planted along the way in my teaching career was speaking at conferences and doing lots of free stuff, basically. So when you're being paid by the school and you're doing a lot of work there and you go and speak at a conference, you're obviously representing the school that you work for and showcasing the amazing things that you think you're doing and or maybe that are happening within the school. But another thing I'd say about that, it really helps you network. So doing all those conferences, and it was a lot. Like I've definitely done over 50. It might be closer to 100, I'm not sure, but between online, different conferences, different things across the way, wellbeing was really big here in the UAE in terms of education a few years ago. Plus all the like bits that you do in the evenings and for other countries and things like that. So building up the network and speaking about the things I was really passionate about and the things that we were learning was definitely a really valuable seed to plant, because along the way I met so many amazing people, many of whom believe in what I was doing and now are the ones that are helping me launch into schools with ECA clubs and connect me with other people where they think I can support with work. So it's been really lovely. That's definitely a seed that's starting to bloom now. And also things like the podcast, Instagram. My first one was Mindful Miss Green while I was teaching. So if you ever look at it and scroll away back, if you've got nothing to do one day, you'll see like way back in my classroom, you can almost watch the journey unfold, and those are all little seeds. So I guess the reason why I'm telling you these things is like, look back and think about the seeds that you've planted along the way, whether you are looking for a career change or whether you're just looking to enhance one element of your practice within teaching or your work or whatever it is. Think about the seeds that you've already planted way before, because I guarantee you there'll be loads and there'll be way more than you realise. So yeah, have a think about them. Another thing I wanted to share just in this first episode, and I probably will go into things like this in more depth in the coming episodes, but I wanted to just share a few of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Now, there are actually a million of these, but I'm only going to mention a couple because I feel like once I get back into the swing of making this podcast properly, I can dive a bit deeper into certain topics, but I'm a bit rusty, so I only want to just touch on a few things in this episode. So lessons I've learned along the way so far in Green Heart Wellbeing, 4 of the important ones, and I've written them down. This is why I keep looking over here. My computer's like behind the screen, behind the camera. What one am I going to start with? Yeah, like small beginnings matter. So this was an important one that I had written down, because like I said, when you think about a seed, obviously, and those that teach Key Stage 1 and actually plant seeds with like the nursery kids and whatever, or you might do it with the older kids, like that tiny little seed, that tiny thing, giant things can grow from it, So again, when you're thinking about your seeds, think about, even though you're like, oh, it's so small, it doesn't really matter, like how can I make a new career out of that, or how can I grow something big from that? You can, like, so just think of like the little seed. It takes time. You have to nurture it, you have to give it the right conditions, and that doesn't happen all the time. Like, how many of us forget to water plants? This one is flourishing. I have another one in there that I just can't keep alive no matter what I do. Well, it's alive, it's on its last legs, but so it's not the right conditions for it. I need to look and see what else it needs. So even if you've had like a spark of an idea, or one conversation that really lit you up, Like, think back to that. There's something about that feeling that you have inside that is tapping you on the shoulder and being like, this is actually important to you. This means something to your soul, or this is part of why you're here, you know? So don't disregard the small things. If there's something, a little whiff of an idea or a little just tap of something that you notice, then use that, you know, it might be popping up for a reason, and it can be anything, you know. So don't disregard the small things. Small beginnings matter. And I had to remind myself about that as well when I was sitting down thinking about, you know, starting Green Heart, but also even coming back to like the podcast and things. I'm like, okay, so even if you get 3 downloads again, I think I was averaging maybe 50 or 60 downloads or something per episode before, maybe a wee bit more than that when I was doing it consistently. But again, I'm like, this is a small beginning. Going back to the podcast, rebranding it, you know, even if I get 5 downloads or whatever, it's a win, you know, and it matters. So that's definitely one of the lessons, is the small things are also just as important as the big things. Identity evolves. So this is one that I kind of struggled with quite a lot at the beginning. So I was Miss Green. Some people still call me Miss Green, like, and which is actually really nice. But I think when I was working in education, I had this real thing about, this is who I am and this is who people expect to see. So my career and my job became a huge part of like my identity and who I was and who, you know, and it would almost like cover some of the other parts of myself. Like, I really love lots of, well, some of my friends call it like woo-woo things, but I don't call it that. It's like, well, I would say like really spiritual practices, you know, like I really love oracle cards and things like that, and, you know, intention setting by a full moon, like all that kind of stuff. But again, that was crystals, things like that. And, you know, you could bring in little elements. And I had a year 3 class, and when we were teaching them about rocks and soils, it was like a fun time to bring in all my crystals. But, you know, there was parts of me that just were like, they didn't belong in school. And there was parts that was like, no, you're Miss Green, so you have to be like this, or you can't do that. So it's taken me a while to realise that actually your identity can evolve, and something that I've always known, but now I'm definitely living in a place of really living this way, is authenticity. So it's like showing who you are, because who you are is great. And for example, within education, I might have shown lots of parts of who I was to the children, but to me also, another episode or another relationships is the most important thing with the kids, and it's important that they see a lot of who you are, you know. The best parts obviously, but like sometimes I would say to the children, you know, when I was feeling upset, I'd not lay anything on them that wasn't appropriate. I just mean as in, like, if I was having a tired day or something, I started to share it with them, because it was important for them to see I'm also human, you know, and that your identity and your being is important, but it can also evolve. So now I feel like Green Heart Wellbeing is much more aligned with who I am at the moment, and who's to say that maybe in 10 years that'll be totally different. But for now, one of the lessons I wanted to share was identity can evolve. I'm still an educator, I still teach, but now in a much different way, in a way that actually feels more free to me, and aligns more with the things that I believe and what I want to say, and perhaps maybe less constraints, you know. Astrology is something that I learned quite a bit about before. I can't do anything with it other than like look at my own chart and learn my own things, but being an Aquarius rising means that there's quite a kind of rebellious part of me, which I would have never thought before when I was working within schools. So being able to kind of stretch and move that around a little bit feels great for me. Another lesson, now I have learned this along the way, and like I explained earlier on, I went from one extreme to the other, and then now trying to get back into balance, is that well-being needs to be proactive. Now, if you know me personally, you'll know that there's things that I just really, I don't do and I should do, and that's exercise. I have like a real sweet tooth. I eat far too much sugar and things like that. Also, if you know me professionally or personally, you'll probably realise that I take ages to get back to a WhatsApp. But again, I'm starting to try and get into a bit more balance with that, because at the time, I had a realisation that this phone, and within school also, being so accessible, particularly through COVID time and everything, was really detrimental to my well-being. Like I was so accessible all the time to everybody, and I really struggled with that. So then, like I say, the pendulum swung all the way to the other side, and then I just was like ignoring all my WhatsApp conversations, and thank goodness I know lovely people who understand that about me and don't get cross with me. But at the time, it was like a preventative measure in the sense, because I was always thinking that whenever there's a message that comes through or something, it needs something from me, it demands something from me, and I had to kind of work on that to realise that that's not the case. So yeah, well-being must be proactive, and this is an important one for people who are going back to school, or whatever industry you're in, thinking about it. It's like you have to do the things before anything happens. And that sounds quite glum. I don't mean it like that, but it's more the point of burnout that I reached was really rough. And I think if I had maybe found ways to help myself before that, it might not have been to the extent that it was. We've all heard the thing, you can't pour from an empty cup. We've all heard the put your mask on first. And those, although they're simple analogies, they're so true. So on Instagram, if you follow me there, or in my newsletter, I've just released a wee wellbeing workbook for teachers, which is exactly that. It's like putting preventative things in place before the chaos ensues and the hard work starts, because it is 100 miles an hour from day one. And yeah, I think one of the things I've learned that I want to share is that wellbeing must be proactive, but it's something that I'm still always focusing on. As now my time is completely different, I've realised I actually love a really slow morning, and I would prefer to work in front of the computer in the evening, which was different from before. Before, when I was in school, I was like, I must have sleep. I must get to sleep now. If I don't have enough sleep, I'm going to be exhausted tomorrow. And but now I realise that my day is so free that I have so much space. I should be able to start being more proactive about the things that are better for my well-being. So you heard it here. I'm saying it out into the universe. I'm going to start going back to yoga within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully I mentioned that in another episode. Now, another thing, a lesson that I learned along the way, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I can see my episode's at 22 minutes and it was only supposed to be 20. This always happens. A lesson that I learned along the way since launching Green Heart, dipping a toe into my forest school course. I promised Sharon, the lady that I'm learning from, that I would have it done by the end of August. So inshallah, I hope that I'm able to do that, because nature's pace and nature's place within well-being is just, well, I love the word ineffable, because sometimes it's got this thing that it's really hard to describe and there's no words. When I go home in the summer to Scotland, it's lovely to be around nature. I even like the rain. My parents have got a conservatory. If it's raining, I'll go in there and read because I love the sound of the rain hitting off the glass. I often go places with my two friends, Amy and Claire, and we'll go somewhere. And I particularly love to visit. We visited a really old yew tree in the summer. I've been there twice now. I think it's 500 years old. And I don't know if you've ever hugged a tree, but there's this feeling that happens inside me that I just absolutely thrive off of. So I think nature's pace and place is definitely something that I've realised the importance of. Now, obviously living in Dubai, there's not as much nature around as I would like, particularly in the marina. But again, I guess I'm gonna learning lessons from that along the way, as in you've got to take nature where you can find it. So here it's more I'd go to the beach or the desert, not when it's so hot, visit a park, go to my favourite beaches in Al Quwain, where I can take Teddy with me, the dog, and it's putting your feet on the ground where you can. So the other thing about that is what I kind of mentioned at the beginning about the seeds. Growth takes time. When you have worked with little ones and you've planted seeds, and you'll know, like, 20 minutes later they'll be over looking at it like, where is it? And then you have to explain the process. And also even older kids, like when you plant it and they start checking it day by day, you know, they expect things really quickly. Probably a lot to do with the society that we live in and stuff, but growth, real growth that is impactful, really takes time, and slow progress is sustainable progress, you know. So I think this is another thing in my psyche about looking at Green Heart Wellbeing like a plant. You know, the seeds have been planted, it's starting to grow some roots now. Eventually there'll be more blooms. So I just think that's a really nice lesson to think about. So think about that in your context. Like, first of all, how present is nature? How present are you in nature? What do you think about the pace of nature? How can you bring that into your own being and day-to-day life? And where's your place? My place just now is an hour's drive away. It's too hot to go really just now, like the beach that I mentioned, but that's my place. Like, when I go there, I just feel so immersed in earth, and it's really nice. Okay, practical takeaways. So I've given a few throughout the this episode because I'm just chatting, so I've mentioned some things that you can do along the way, but I just want to mention some other ones so that this episode has value for you. And I want you to come back. I want you to come back to Green Heart Wellbeing Podcast and enjoy it and help it grow, like we were talking about. That word is like the word of the day. So I've got 3 things I wanted to share with you. The first thing is maybe a reflection, going back to the seeds. What seed could you plant in your own life right now? Whether it's a hobby, thinking back to some conversations that have been useful for you, or a little change that is going to nourish your well-being. One of the suggestions that I made on Instagram the other day, if you're a teacher or even whatever, if you're in the office and stuff, is make yourself a little calm bag. This was an example to help you nourish your well-being. And in that little bag, there are things that will give you momentary joy, especially when things are going tough. So if you've just had a meeting and there's been fraught words or whatever, then, you know, go and get that little tea bag out of there, or put your crystal in your pocket, or whatever it is, you know. So think about the seeds that you can plant in your own life right now, just that. And whatever is best for you will come to you. Try and get outside in nature today. Again, if you're in Dubai, it's roasting, the humidity's starting. I have to go outside because of Teddy. Twice a day we go out, even though it's really hot. But I try, even though in the street or the different places I take them, in the marina there isn't a huge amount of nature. But this is a thing we can do this week, is spend maybe 5 minutes outside and spot something new about nature. Or go and put your feet on the grass in the garden if you've got one. Sit outside and feel the heat on your skin, or feel the rain on your skin, whatever it is. Just be in it for 5 minutes. And also, this was a nice one that came to me because another thing I've been doing over the last, really properly over the last kind of week or two is morning pages, but journaling. So something when I'm journaling I've realised is like, so much comes out, and it's normally when I'm getting ready to finish the last page. So I try and do 3 pages of morning pages, and then maybe the last half of the 3rd page is when something really comes out. It's almost like my mind knows that it's going to finish writing soon, so then there's something that really kind of eye-opening or refreshing comes out. So journaling, do some journaling, or maybe write down some skills or things from your career or things from your teaching career, or as a teacher, that you can do that you could use in a totally different way. So, you know, one example I guess I could share was, you know, in schools, there's always, especially primary, like different apps where you have to upload photos of the kids and different things. Like, you're used to technology. So then you might be asked to like upload things to the school Twitter account or X account, if that's still a thing, I don't even know. But then that means that you've got that skill that you can use for your own business and your own self. So yeah, just do some journaling, see what comes out. Okay, 29 minutes. This one's 30 minutes long, a wee bit longer than I planned. Normally it's 20 minutes or so, but thank you so much. If you got to the end, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to having more Green Heart Wellbeing podcasts in future, weekly. Again, I always do this for a bit and then it starts to fall by the wayside, but I'm a business owner now, so I need to learn how to be consistent and make sure that I show up for myself, but also for the people that take the time to listen. So thank you so much. Write to me if there's anything you want to ask about. Write if there's any topics that you think would be interested in this podcast. And I look forward to speaking to you and seeing you or reading your words soon. Bye.